Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah, the son of David. And today we're looking at 84b, Pei Dalet and Beis of Tractate Chullin, with the words Ve'omar Rabbi Yochanan. It's about a line or two into it. Ve'omar Rabbi Yochanan, Kesed dechorshinon, dechoroshim v'lo chesed deforshin, v'hanim ili bichlei matochois, אבל בכלי חרס לסלון בו, בכלי מטורס נמלום, אלא בדלו שדי בו ציביו, אבל שדי בו ציביו לסלון בו, נכילו שדי בו ציביו נמלום, אמרינן אלא לא יציא צלציס לסלון בו. The Gemara cites in additional statements by Rabbi Yochanan providing practical advice. Rabbi Yochanan says it is preferable to drink from a cup of witches. It is preferable to drink from a cup of witches and not to drink from a cup of lukewarm water. I don't know about that. That might be like a guzman. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration. A cup of witches is better than lukewarm water, which is extremely unhealthy. Who says? It is preferable to drink from a cup of witches, he says. I don't think that's true. And not to drink from a cup of lukewarm water, which is extremely unhealthy. Rabbi Yochanan qualifies his statement. We said this only with regard to lukewarm water in metal vessels. But in earthenware vessels, we have no problem with it. And even in metal vessels, we said that lukewarm water is unhealthy only in the case where one did not cast flavorings into the water. But if he cast flavorings into the water, we have no problem with it. I mean, with all of these modifiers, these qualifiers, and he starts off with it so strong that it's like better. So it's better to drink from a cup of witches if you drink in a water that was lukewarm, that came from metal vessels, that has no flavorings in it. Then I don't know what they're trying to say here. But anyway, that's what he's saying. It is only the case when one did not cast flavorings into the water. But if you cast flavorings into the water, we have no problem with it. And even if one cast flavorings into the water, we said it's only in the case where the water had not been boiled. But if the water had been boiled, we have no problem with it. All right. Rabbi Yochanan mishaniach lo avi moiz. Dechoitz labdon yilbash kli pishton yishamish bechlis chuchis. Yiskoich poi ali mal yesh devi mohin. Yilbash kli pishton michin chitana de romita. Yishtamish bechlis chuchis. Bizugiso chivarto. Yisko poi ali mal yoshevi mohin. And Rabbi Yochanan says, in the case of one whose father bequeathed him a great deal of money, and he seeks to lose it, he should wear linen garments, and he should use glass vessels, and he should hire laborers and not sit with them to supervise. The Gemara elaborates he should wear linen garments. This is stated with regard to Roman linen, which becomes tattered quickly. He should use glass vessels. This is stated with regard to expensive white glass. He should hire laborers and not sit with them. This applies to laborers who work with oxen, whose potential for causing damage is great if they are not supervised, as they will trample the crops. V'doresh Rav Aviro zimnin omar lo mishmei de Rabbi Ami v'zimnin omar lo mishmei de Rabbi Asi. Mai dichsiv toy vishchoinin umalve yichalkel devor v'mishpot. לעולם יאכל אדם ישתה פחוס ממה שיש לו וילבש ויזכסה במה שיש לו יכבד אשתו ובנו יויסר ממה שיש לו שאין תלוין בו והוא תלוי במי שאמר העולם. Rav Avira interpreted the following verse homiletically. But sometimes he said the interpretation in the name of Rabbi Ami, and sometimes he said it in the name of Rabbi Asi. What is the meaning of that which is written? Good is the man who is gracious and lends, who orders his affairs with justice. Psalms 112 verse 5. It means to teach that a person should always eat and drink less than what is within his means. He should dress and cover himself in accordance with his means, and he should honor his wife and children more than what is within his means, as they are dependent on him, and he is dependent on the one who spoke, and the world was created. Dorash Rav Eino apischo deresh galuso hashoichi lechoyle v'shabos chayu lechasois amaluhu rabo yishtoma komar yishtam tu amore mine Tanya Rav Yossi Omer koi ein shoichet in oisa b'yom tov ve'im shocheto ein mechasnis damo. The Mishnah teaches that one may not slaughter a koi on a festival, since he may not cover its blood, as it is unclear whether there is any obligation by a Torah law to do so. But if one transgressed and slaughtered a koi, one does not cover its blood. With regard to this, Rav Eina taught at the entrance to the house of the exilarch, the Reish Galusa, the realm of the Reish Galusa, one who slaughters an undomesticated animal for a bird, for a critically ill person on Shabbat, for whom it is permitted to slaughter, is obligated to cover his blood. Rava said to those present, Rav Eina is saying an astonishing statement. Remove his interpreter from before him, as it is taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yossi says, one may not slaughter a koi on a festival, but if he slaughtered it, one does not cover its blood until after the festival. Yom Tov kisoi she'ein vadai doche Shabbos ein din she'ein speko doche Yom Tov. Rabbi Yossi elaborates, this can be derived from an a kal v'chomer inference. And if, with regard to the mitzvah of circumcision, concerning which a definite obligation overrides Shabbat, nevertheless its uncertain obligation does not override a festival, then with regard to the mitzvah of covering the blood, concerning which even a definite obligation does not override Shabbat, is it not logical that its uncertain obligation, meaning covering the blood of a koi, would not override a festival? Although circumcision involves an act of prohibited labor, one performs on a Shabbat for a male infant whose 8th day from birth occurs on Shabbat. But in a case where it is uncertain when the 8th day from birth occurs, it is forbidden to circumcise the child on a festival. By contrast, covering the blood is never performed on Shabbat. Amar lo tkiya shoifar bigvulim tochiach she'in va'adoi doiche Shabbos usfeka doiche Yom Tov. The sages said to him in rebuttal, the sounding of the shofar in the provinces meeting outside the temple will prove that it is a kal v'chomer, that this kal v'chomer inference is incorrect. This is because its definite obligation does not override Shabbat, and it is prohibited to sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbat. And yet it is uncertain. Its uncertain obligation overrides the festival. Heishiv Rabbi Elazar kapor b'Rebbi Tshuva. Ma lemila shekein eino nehekes pelel yomim toivim. Tana v'chisoyin shenoye v'lel yomim toivim. Rabbi Elazar HaKapar, the distinguished, responded with another refutation of the afortiori inference. It cannot be inferred from circumcision that an uncertain obligation of the mitzvah of covering the blood does not override a festival. What is notable about circumcision? It is notable in that it is not in effect on festival nights, but is performed only during the daytime. Will you then say with regard to the mitzvah of covering the blood, which is in effect on festival nights, that it does not override a festival? Perhaps since the mitzvah of covering the blood is in effect during both day and night, its uncertain obligation overrides a festival as well. Amar Rabbi Abba, zechad min advarim she'amar b'chia, ein li aleihem tshuva. V'heishiv Rabbi Elazar kapar b'Rebbi Tshuva. In reference to Rabbi Elazar Kapar's reputation, Rabbi Abba says this is an fortiori inference. The Kal V'chomer drawn by Rabbi Yossi is one of the matters with regard to which Rabbi Chia says, I do not have any refutation for them. And Rabbi Elazar HaKapar, the distinguished, successfully responded with refutation. Katani mihas kisoy shein vadoi doiche Shabbos, my vadoi di chisoy loi doichi Shabbos, lava shoichi lechoili b'Shabbos. Rabbah concludes his refutation of the statement of Rav Eino. In any event, the Braita teaches that definite obligations with regard to the mitzvah of covering the blood does not override Shabbat. Now, what is the case of a definite obligation of covering the blood and that does not override Shabbat? Is it not a case where one slaughters an uninvestigated animal for a bird, for a critically ill poison on Shabbat? The Braita nevertheless teaches that one does not cover the blood in contradiction to the ruling of Ravena. The Dilma Dal Shabbat, the Gemara asks, but perhaps the Braita is referring to an instance where one transgressed Shabbat and slaughtered an animal for a healthy person. But in a case where one slaughtered an animal for an ill person, since it was permitted for him to slaughter the animal, perhaps he must cover the blood as well. The Gemara responds that Braita cannot be referring to such a case, since Rav Yossi compares it with circumcision. Therefore, it must be similar to the case of circumcision, in that just as the circumcision was performed with permission, as it is a mitzvah to perform circumcision, even if the 8th day falls on Shabbat, so too the covering of the blood must be referring to a case where the slaughter was done with permission, meaning for an ill person. Accordingly, the Braita poses a difficulty to the statement of Rav Eino. Amru lo tekiya shofar b'gvurin tochiach she'ein vado doiche Shabbos u'sfeika doiche Yom Tov. The Braita states that the sages said to Rav Yossi in refutation of his Kal V'chomer inference, the sounding of the shofar in the provinces will prove that the inference is incorrect, since its definite obligation does not override Shabbat, and its uncertain obligation overrides the festival. My sefek ha'inem safek choil safek Yom Tov hashtava the Yom Tov dachio safek Yom Tov safek chol miboya. The Gemara asks, what is its uncertain obligation that overrides a festival? If we say that is referring to uncertainty with regard to whether one of the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is a weekday or a festival, this is unfeasible. Now that the sounding of the shofar overrides a definite festival of Rosh Hashanah, is it necessary to teach that it overrides a day with regard to which it is uncertain whether a festival or a weekday? That is, if the uncertainty is with regard to the festival itself, then this case should have no bearing on the halacha concerning the obligation to cover the blood of a kohen on a festival, since the latter occurs on a definite festival. Ad Kan, we've completed 84b. Thanks for joining. Hopefully see you next time.